It is early evening as the sage approaches the bonfire. The 7 children wait impatiently, as they do every evening. "Tell us more, please," they shout as soon as they see him in the distance. "Yes, teach us another one of your secrets." They watch anxiously as he walks toward them. Sod sits down with the children and smiles. "I know a wonderful secret. Do you want to hear it?" "Yes, yes, yes!" the children all shout. "When I was very young, maybe 3 or 4 years old, I didn't have anyone to play with because all of the kids on my street were bigger and didn't want to play with me. I was just a baby," they said. "You see, Magnus and his family had not yet moved in next door. So in those early years I often sat by the window and watched the bigger kids play. I was very lonely and wished that I had someone to play with. My grandfather often came to visit us. One day he visited us carrying something very big in his arms. It was covered completely by a blanket. "Are you curious about what's under the cover?" he asked. I nodded, jumping up and down from excitement. "Yes, Grandpa. Please show me." He removed the blanket, revealing a cage with a beautiful bird in it. "Say hello to Max," Grandfather said, and he smiled. Before I could answer, the bird said, "Hello." I was shocked. A talking bird! My grandfather laughed when he saw my face. "My neighbor had Max for many years. He is an old parrot. My neighbor taught him to speak. He can say several words, but of course he doesn't understand what he is saying. He will just repeat your words." "Is his name Max?" I asked. "Maxibird," instantly came from the bird's mouth. "Yes," my grandfather said. "His name is Max. My neighbor often called him Maxibird as a nickname. Let us take him into your room so he can fly around." We did, and opened the small door of the cage. My grandfather told me to put my fingers into the cage. When I did, Max immediately jumped on. I removed my hand from the cage with Max clutched firmly about my fingers. Once outside, he began singing happily, then launched into flight, flitting freely about my room. I laughed and laughed. "He is so funny." "Funny," Max replied, sounding as if he was laughing too. "Do you want to keep him?" my grandfather asked. My eyes almost jumped out of my head. "I can keep him?" My heart sang with joy. "Yes," Grandfather said. "My neighbor is getting very old and he wants Max to be with somebody who can play with him and talk to him. Can you do that?" "Yes, yes, yes!" I laughed as I watched the beautiful bird flying around my room. From that day on, I didn't feel lonely. Max and I had so much fun. Every day I fed him, cleaned his cage, and let him fly in my room. We talked for hours, and I always understood what he said to me, and he understood everything I said as well. "Do you want an apple or a carrot today?" I would ask. "I think a carrot would be nice today. Maybe also some peas if you had them," he would answer. My mother didn't believe me when I told her that I could understand everything he said, but that didn't matter. I did understand everything Max said, and I was too happy to care if no one else believed me. Then one morning, Max didn't want to eat. He didn't want to fly either. "Are you sick?" I asked. "I don't feel well," he said. "You know I am old, right?" "Yes, yes," I said. "But you will be okay, won't you?" He looked at me with his small, sweet eyes and said, "My time is coming. I can feel it." "What does that mean?" I asked nervously. My heart started to race very fast. That didn't sound good, even though I didn't understand entirely. "That means I'm going to die soon." "Die?" "Yes, I will soon leave this bird body and return home." "But you are home." I started to cry. "Are you going to leave me?" Don't you want to live with me any more?" "Of course," he said. "I love being with you. We are best friends, and you take great care of me." "Then why are you going to leave me?" I cried and cried, and my heart was filled with a sorrow I had never felt before. "When I say die," Max replied, "it only means leaving this body. The life which is me cannot die." "But where will you be? Will I still be able to play with you and talk to you?" I cried. "Not for a little while," he said in a sweet tone. "But you have been a great friend, and I will come back to you. I promise you that." Later that day, my mother took him to the vet. She said there wasn't much she could do for Max. He was just old, and his body couldn't live any longer. She said she would help Max die peacefully, so he wouldn't have to suffer. When my mother returned, she was carrying Max in a small box. He was completely still and cold. His body had stopped working and was dead. I cried for several days and felt so sad that I thought I would never be happy again. We buried Max in the garden. I sat there next to his grave most of the day to see if he was going to return, as he had promised, but nothing happened. A couple of months went by, and I was still feeling very sad. I missed Max very much, and the big kids still didn't want to play with me. I was back to being very lonely. Sometimes I was so sad and lonely that I wished I had never known Max. It would have been so much easier if I hadn't known how great it was to have such a wonderful friend, I thought. One evening, my father suggested we make a bonfire, as we often did when the weather was nice. As we toasted marshmallows that evening, I could hear many noises coming from the garden next to ours. "Some new neighbors are moving in," my father explained. I sat there, eating marshmallows, listening to the noises behind the hedge, when a small bluebird landed next to me. He was beautiful, and I was surprised he came so close to me. "Hi, Sod," he said suddenly. I stared with surprise. "Are you talking to me?" "I don't see other sods around here, do you?" he laughed. "How do you know my name?" "Don't you recognize me?" the bird asked, tilting his head exactly the same way that Max used to do. Suddenly I knew. I just knew. No matter what anybody would say, I knew that Max had returned. "Max!" I almost cried from joy. "Yes," he laughed again. "I promised that I would come back, and here I am." "But you look different," I said. "Yes, I have returned as a different kind of bird," he said. "And this time I will be a free bird and have other great experiences. This is called reincarnation." What?" "Reincarnation," he laughed. "I will come back every evening to talk to you, but now I have to go." He flew high up in the air, made some very skillful movements, and even did a somersault. That night it was difficult for me to fall asleep, and I couldn't wait till the next day to see Max again. The next evening the bluebird kept his promise and returned. "Oh, such fun to move around all over the town," he laughed. "I love being a free bird." "Oh, Max, tell me, how can you first be a parrot and now a bluebird?" I insisted. "It is called reincarnation," he answered. "It means that what we really are, the life inside, is eternal and will live forever. The form we use is just a container that we change from time to time. We want to learn everything we can, so we use different containers or forms. As a parrot, I couldn't fly long distances. Now I can, and it is so much fun." From that moment on, the bluebird came to visit me every day and in all seasons. My mother and father didn't believe me when I told them that Max had returned, but I didn't care. I knew the truth. My father told me that the new family next door had a boy my age, and that was exciting news as well. A couple of days later, I met Magnus for the first time, and we started playing together and became best friends. Now I had 2 friends. I was so filled with joy that I did a happy dance every morning when I got out of bed. Sod looked at the children and smiled. Isn't that a wonderful secret? A young boy, Jonah, asked, My grandma died some time ago, and I was very sad. Is it the same with people? Do they also come back? Sod smiled. Yes, we humans also come back. When we leave, we call it dying, but this is just temporary. We leave our bodies or the container behind. Then we go to another place to rest and have fun. One day we come back as a new baby with a new name. Maybe my grandma will come back to me also, Jonah said. Yes, she will come back. Sooner or later, Sod smiled. Can I ask another question? Jonah said. Yes, of course, Sod smiled. Does the bluebird still come to visit you? No, he learned everything he could as a bluebird and changed his body again. He has come back as different birds at different times, and we are still friends. What is he right now? Jonah asked again. Look up in the tree behind me, Sod laughed. All the children looked up into the branches of the big tree. Do you see the white owl? Yes. That is Max. He has chosen to live as an owl for a while. Come on down and say hello to the kids, Sod said to the owl. Without hesitating, it came down and sat on his arm. The children all took turns touching him and looking into his big, wise eyes. Now you know another one of my secrets, Sod smiled. We are eternal lives, but change our bodies. We like to experience new things, don't you? The children nodded. Yes, they loved having new experiences too. They all stood and shouted their goodbyes as they were leaving. Thank you, Sod. Thank you so much for the great story tonight. Goodbye. See you soon, my friends. Everyone left, and the forest was quiet and empty, except for the animals who lived there.